Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter, with week 7 of Ask a Crafter. I didn't think I had that many questions this week, but when I went to print them off, I had 4 pages, people. So I'm going to jump right in it and get going so we don't have like a 2-hour video to deal with. First question is from Kathy. She asks, I'm seriously frugal when it comes to crafting. I haunt the clearance aisles all the time. I recently spotted something really cheap tissue paper that bleeds. I have a habit of buying first and thinking later. Now I don't know what to do with it. Is there any adult crafts to use it for? Thank you. Yes, what I like to do is, like, if I'm doing a painting and I'm like painting a picture of a butterfly or a fairy with wings or something where I want kind of like a gauzy, kind of crinkly look, like butterfly wings, I would paint the wings with like gel medium or Mod Podge or clear varnish, clear acrylic varnish, something like that. Elmer's glue, anything like that. And then I would tear the tissue paper and lay it down into the glue and then paint over it with another layer and then maybe add some shimmer to the glue as I paint over it. And that just, and the colors will bleed and meld together and just gives you a really ethereal, crinkly look. It will look like, you know, just gauzy wings. It's because it's transparent. The colors bleed and meld together. It's very pretty. You could try making a background on cardstock, like maybe stamp on the cardstock and then paint on some glue and then press down the tissue paper and give it another coat of glue and then maybe spritz on some shimmer mist or anything like that. Just kind of play with it, but they will bleed and blend together. It's a great art medium, really. Art material. I wouldn't use it for wrapping presents though, because if you get out in a rainstorm on your way, like from the car to a birthday party, it's going to bleed everywhere. So I would keep it for the craft room, but it's really fun to collage with. Sherry writes, my question this week is, what does your husband think about your crafting room and does he have a hobby? My hubby cringes at craft stuff. My husband has hobbies. He does some woodworking and he also gardens. He's got a green thumb. I have a black thumb. But yeah, he's very supportive. He'll walk down to my room. He'll say, honey, I need a roll of tape. I'm like, oh, okay, go downstairs. It's in the top drawer in the little dresser that I have down there. And he'll just walk down to my room and be like, what dresser, what drawer, you know, because there's so much stuff down here, but he's really cool with it. I think part of the reason that he's so supportive is that it all lives down here in the basement. It's not, you know, in a corner of the living room or the bedroom or on the kitchen table. It's all contained in my little corner. Well, it's not really little. It's not really contained. Sometimes my walls happen to push out a little bit further to the rest of the basement, but yeah, he's pretty cool with it. 1974 Green Krista writes, hey Lindsay, I have some small, some word art wall letters that are sticky on the back. However, a couple of the letters do not want to stay stuck to the wall. Any suggestions? I would try rubber cement. Rubber cement comes with like a brush in the cap. Brush a little bit of that on the letter that doesn't want to stick. Let it set up a few seconds, maybe 20, 30 seconds. And then, just so it's not goopy, and then press it onto the wall. And the nice thing about the rubber cement is it's removable. So when you change your mind about the wall letters, you'll be able to peel them off pretty easily. Janine Chavez writes, hi Lindsay. Also, Krista wanted to know a little more about the Inktense pencils, and the next question is also about Inktense pencils, so I'm going to kill 2 birds with 1 stone here. So Janine writes, hi Lindsay, after watching your video on Derwent Inktense pencils, I just had to try them, and I have to say I love them. So if you're interested in Inktense and you want to see some demos, if you go to my channel and search, there's a little channel search bar. If you just type in the word Inktense, there'll be a few videos that you can watch and you can see them in action. I started out with a set of 12 and in no time I was purchasing the rest. I have been doing stamping and coloring flowers. The problem I'm having is that it doesn't seem to be drying all the way or to the point that it was permanent. Should I be heat setting or could I be using too much color? I color thick so it's darker. Any advice would be great. Alright, so one of the big benefits to Inktense pencils is that you can color a seam, wet it with water, and then when it dries, those colors are supposed to be permanent like ink, also bright like ink. They're definitely bright like ink. However, they're not completely 100% permanent, as you can, if it's a really dark color and you've colored it really darkly, even though you've added water and liquefied it to the point of ink and you've let it dry again, if you were to brush over some of those colors with water, again, some of it's going to streak. I did a card with a geisha with a kimono, and I did the kimono in a really dark crimson red, and if I was to brush over that, after it was all dry, it would have smeared, definitely. So it's permanent to a point. If you're coloring with really dark colors, really thickly, even if you wet them down really good and they dry, some of that color is still going to be lifted. The paper's only going to be able to hold so much. So you're not doing anything wrong. Just if you know you're going over a really dark spot in a picture, don't just go willy-nilly brush your brush over it. You know, go easy and gingerly in that. Use a soft brush. For the most part, the colors are permanent once you lay them down, but those really dark ones colored thickly are not going to be. It's just how it is. Just what it is. You got to deal with it. But I think that's you know, a small limitation in that range of colors. They're my favorite color pencils, and I would recommend them over any other brands. I really think you get more for your money because the colors is so intense. You can always just use a little bit, and it will spread out a long way, rather than having to keep using over and over and over your other pencils and wearing them down to get the same amount of color. So yes, Inktense, I can't recommend them highly enough. All right, whew, I just sprinted down the stairs. This is take 2 of this video because I was just getting into the questions and the phone rang, and I ran upstairs to answer it and ran back downstairs. Brought the phone with me this time. That's thinking. Marianne writes, hi Lindsay, my question is on the bags you'll use for your crafts. I use polypropylene cello little self-sealing bags, and I put my stuff in it to sell at craft shows. Is there any one size that's better, or do you order different sizes? I have a few different sized items, so I'd probably need at least 4 or 5 sizes. Or do you have another suggestion? Okay, I have 2 suggestions. You can either buy small quantities of a bunch of different sizes pretty affordably. Consumercrafts.com sells them quite inexpensively. Or you can get a big bulk box of a couple sizes that will fit the bill for most of your things, and that's what I do. I get the 3x5, which is like ATC size, and they're perfect for my earrings that I put on ATC cards to sell, and also smaller crafts and food items. I get the FDA food safe bags, and so I can put the food items in there. And you can find those at uline.com or Paper Mart. Both of those shops have really good prices on the bags. And I also get 6x9 because for a 6x9 bag I can put a A2 card, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, but with the envelope it's almost 6 inches wide. I'll put them in like if the bag is going like that, I've got the card going in, so you fold the bag in half and it fits it perfectly. Or I could put a 5x7 card in there with an envelope, or a little set of cards. And then I did buy a box of the 7x7, but I don't use them very much. But occasionally, if I'm doing like a 6x6 card or something larger than that, larger like that, or a larger set, I need the 7x7 bag. But that would, I don't know if I probably will never need to buy them again. I had a package of 1,000. That's probably gonna last me a lifetime. But the 6x9s and the 3x5s, I'm usually able to work whatever I'm selling into those sizes. But I know like Consumer Crafts and some like the stamping stores will sell smaller, like packs of 100 of these different sizes instead of 1,000. So, and it's, you know, it's not that expensive. So either way you wanna do it. I do so many craft fairs and I sell so much stuff that I just get the packs of 1,000. Then I'll sell them to my friends if they need some, or we'll go in together on an order. That's what I do. Jackie Brockett writes, can you do a tutorial on using the shiny foil paper? I always screw it up and do it backwards. I'm talking about the foil where you use a glue stamp and then you put the foil paper on your stamped image, and voila, you have a shiny image. I'll explain it a little bit. I just bought some of the foil at the stamp show to do some of that, so yeah, I'll probably have a tutorial coming up on that. But basically you want to either stamp something with glue. What I would do, actually, I saw a demo at the KQR, oh my gosh, I've already forgotten, I'm sorry, Stampede booth at the stamp show, and she was using this heat and stick powder, which seemed to be a lot nicer than this Tip It Up heat and stick powder. I bought some and I'm going to play with it. But so if you stamped with Versamark ink, then you sprinkled it with a heat and stick powder, heated it up, and then pressed your foil down. And you want to make sure you press your foil down so the silver side is down, but the colored pretty side is facing up. So you kind of think you need to do the other way. It's kind of opposite as how it works. But you put the plain side down with the pretty side up, and then press it down really good with your finger or with a bone folder, and then peel it back, and the foil will have transferred from the clear backing that the foil's on onto your design. So that's how you do that. But yeah, I think I probably will get a video done. This has been a crazy busy week for videos, so I will do my best. Gayla from Tiny Favors writes, thanks for all the Ask a Crafter vids. I like to watch them. Love to watch them. I was wondering, do you know how to make a miniature dollhouse size 1/12 ribbon pom-pom bow? If so, can you please do a video showing how you make them? Can't figure out what size ribbon to use and how to make them so pretty to put on dollhouse presents. Well, I've never heard of this before, but teeny pom-pom, teeny ribbon. I would use the 1/8 inch or 16th inch ribbon you can get from Offray at the craft store. It's like 50 cents a spool. And I would use a fork, and it would go around 3 times of the fork, kind of like they do on Pinterest. You've seen the bow tutorials on Pinterest. So go around, I would go around 3 times, and then you want to put the tying ribbon, before you slide it up, put your tying ribbon in between the middle tine, and then tie it tight, and then slide it off your fork and cut through the ribbon loops, and you should have a little pom-pom there that you can tie on to your present. So hopefully that will work out for you. If not, maybe go to Pinterest and search, because you can usually find some pretty good tutorials there. I'd never heard of that before, but that's what I would do. Jama Blue, I hope I'm saying that okay, writes, Lindsay, I'm sure you have an answer to this question. You're so confident in me. Thank you. I appreciate your confidence. Whether it's well justified or not, I don't know, but I appreciate it. How do you make sheets of tacky paper on one side? Actually, now that I think about it, somewhere on this video you said aliens tack it over and over, and then you apply cardstock to this type of surface. Does it dry? Also, can I make several sheets at a time, and if so, can I cover the surface for future use? Yeah, absolutely. Aliens Tack It Over and Over is a glue that I haven't seen it in stores, but I ordered it online, like Joann.com, and it's basically like a sticker glue. Sometimes I'll paint it on the back of like an unmounted stamp. Like, so here's one of my brand new stamps. So I would take my stamp, and if I didn't want to use like cling foam, I would just paint a coating of Aliens Tack It Over and Over on the back and let it dry, and then it would stick to my clear blocks, and I'd be able to use it like that. It's cheaper than mounting foam. And like, if you have a nice stamp like this one from Lost Coast, see how deeply that's etched? I don't need a cushion on that. It's going to stamp just fine in cherry wine. So that could save you some money, also save you some storage space in your stamp binders if you store like I do in those big binders. So yeah, you could take a piece of cardstock and give it a thin coating of the Aliens Tack It Over and Over, use a paintbrush, and let it dry completely. It'll turn clear, and it's very sticky, very sticky. Then just put a piece of wax paper over it if you want to save it for future use, or maybe you want to die cut it and you want to have a sticky die cut. Yeah, absolutely. It'd be a great thing to do with those really precious, beautiful cardstocks that you want to kind of save, and you can make your own cardstock stickers or whatever you want to do, or to cover a mini album or what have you. But yes, yeah, and just use wax paper to cover it. That should peel right back off when you're done. Or if you save release paper from stickers or mounting foam or whatever. Valerie writes, woohoo, I stayed till the end. 3 girls plus 3 schools equals 1 busy and appreciative mom. Well, thank you. I appreciate you watching. I appreciate everybody who watches. I can't believe anybody's watching. It's crazy. I've made tons of handmade thank yous throughout the year. I always try my hand at making personalized clipboards, but every time the paper bubbles. I do use Mod Podge, and I've tried brayering the top until it dries. Still bubbles. She's tried poking it with pins in the bubbles to get the bubbles out. And I do the clipboards as well. Let's see if I have one. I brought one down to the stamp show with me. I know I could see one over there hanging up on my wall. Maybe I'll just go and grab it. And I'll grab the paste that I use, because that's really important. To use the right adhesive. I got the adhesive. This is what I use. Things are still falling off my shelf over there. Yes paste, and it's really thick. It's a thick paste. Can you see that? Look at that. It's really thick, and what I do is I scoop it out with like a palette knife or a spatula, and then I spread it like frosting, but thinner than frosting, on my surface, and then I press my paper in it. And the cool thing about Yes Paste is that it takes a while to dry, so if I make a mistake, I have it like completely cockeyed, I peel it up, press it back down, smooth it out, and then I'll use like an old credit card over the top to kind of smooth out any bubbles. It's very forgiving, and anytime I need to do any bookbinding, I use the Yes Paste. So one thing I will warn you about, my threads are really clean here, so it's alright. Often I will take a piece of wax paper and I will lay it across the top, and then I'll put my cap on to make sure that it doesn't get glued on. It's happened to me before. I've glued the lid. This is just paste. It's nothing fancy, but it's I swear it glues almost anything. It's really amazing. I'd say water-based paste, clear when dry. You want to make sure don't use this on top of the paper. Use this between your substrate, your surface, and your paper, because it stays tacky for a long time. I did a little like trash can, little rubbish container I made for by my sewing machine upstairs, and I had a little gap where there was glue, and it was sticky for weeks and weeks. I'll grab that clipboard really quick. Oh, this is a fabulous video here. Let's see, this is one that I did, and it's a couple of years ago, and it's, you know, so you can see the paper is nice and smooth and stuck down there really well. And then if you want to do the Mod Podge over it, you can. I would make sure you give the time for the Yes paste to dry. Give it a week or so before you Mod Podge it, just so you're not, you know, so the bond's going to be nice and strong. But, oh, there's my other clipboards right here. Duh. Derp. Well, you know, what do you expect? It's about par for the course. Beverly 1965 writes, "Hi Lindsay, another great video. Question, I want to invest in a mini compressor and airbrush for backgrounds, stenciling, etc. What sort of paint mediums will work, and can you use acrylic paint, alcohol ink, glimmer spray, and how do you thin the paint down so it's thin enough to go through your gun? If you have an airbrush, could you do a video on it? Thanks." I do have at least one video, but I think it might be on my Pro Marker airbrush. So you can get airbrushes that will go on Copic markers or on Pro Markers, or you can get an actual airbrush. Let me see, mine's right here. I don't know if the cord will reach or not. I may have to unscrew it. I'm unscrewing my airbrush over here, don't mind me. Be right with you. Actually, I didn't need to, the cords. Okay, so I have a Pashy VLS, and so you've got the tip that comes off. You can exchange the tips. You can exchange the needles inside, and that will give you a wider or a narrower spray. I'm just going to be careful putting this on that I don't damage it. So when you use your airbrush, it screws on to a cord and hooks to your compressor. I just have a Campbell Hausfield, you know, hardware store compressor, because I use it for other things around the house as well. So if you have an air compressor already, you can use that. There's purists out there that says, oh, there may be moisture in the line if you use a regular. Not enough to bother anything you're going to do. And, you know, if you're out painting vehicles for a living, I think you're going to be just fine with any old air compressor. And if you just want one for airbrush, I think you can get by with like a $30 tire air compressor. Those little tire pumps, those emergency tire pumps, I think those will be fine. The electronic ones, not the pump up and down ones. So the needle that you put inside and the tip will regulate how wide of a swash of color, and you can also adjust that here. There's a little dial there that you can adjust. I pretty much keep this I think it's a number 3 in here, and I use the little dial to adjust how wide I want my spray. So when you go to use it, you press down and air comes out, and as you pull back, you're letting the paint come through, and you can adjust how much paint you want coming through by how far back you pull the trigger. So it's kind of a neat little rig. I like to use liquid watercolors in it, those Dick Blick children's liquid watercolors, because they're safe to spray apply, they're dirt cheap, and they look beautiful. You can thin down acrylic paint, or you can buy airbrush paint, which has already been thinned down. They sell airbrush medium that it kind of thins down your paint without diluting it too much and keeps it kind of consistent. They do make oil-based paints you can spray apply. Just make sure whatever you're buying, you read the label. If it has a CL on it, do not spray apply it. Make sure that it doesn't contain anything like cadmium, cobalt, or any material that can make you ill if you breathe it in. Also, I would avoid paints that are really thick, like they have big thick pigments in it, like anything that uses iron oxide as a pigment, which is kind of a thicker pigment and is likely to clog and damage your airbrush. You could just stick to airbrush paints to be on the safe side. You can spray apply like Copic alcohol inks because they're made with ethanol, but you can't spray apply like the Tim Holtz alcohol inks because they contain denatured alcohol, and denatured alcohol has a poison in it that you really shouldn't drink or breathe. So, you know, just be careful what you spray, because what you spray is going in your air and you're breathing it in. I like watercolors. You can even use watercolors from your watercolor palette. This little cup, I'm going to show you the little cup that goes on the side of this. Hopefully not trip over the cans I just knocked off the shelf. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm getting my little airbrush. For some reason I keep my airbrush cup in my ribbon drawer. I have no idea why. This is great video, isn't it? How are you enjoying the view of the back of my studio? The view of my sewing machine? Honest to Pete, I could get this out of here. Ah, got it. Oh my gosh. I know a lot of you guys just listen anyway. So this little cup, actually, I mostly use this. I just pop this little cup on there. You can get like different cups with covers if you want to mix up a bunch of paint. That just pushes right on there. And I just fill it up with my brush as I go if I'm using regular watercolors. I'm kind of glinting into the sun here, into the light. So yeah, that's I've got a Pashi VLS. I think they're probably somewhere between 60 and 100 depending on what features you have and where you buy it from. I would try like Blick Art Materials or Cheap Joe's or Art Supply Warehouse or someplace like that online. If you know what you want, if you don't, go into an art store and ask, because go too. All right. Oh my gosh, we're on a new file. Look at that. Okay, so this is part 2 of the Ask a Crafter. Goodness gracious. Gail Pace writes, I'm new to stamping and card making. I bought a few sentiment stamps and a few other clear stamps. I'm really wanting to expand my collection. I'd like some advice on what kind of stamps are best for beginners. Backgrounds, flowers, stamps, etc. Also, I've shopped at Joann's and Hobby Lobby and don't see many stamps that I could use a lot. Please suggest the best places to shop for unique and beautiful stamps that would be versatile while I build my collection. Where do I start? Thanks. Okay, Gail, I think I would start with alphabets, because you can use an alphabet to title a scrapbook page. Foam alphabets are great because they're inexpensive and they are nice and bold, and you can use them with acrylic paint or with ink pads. And I'll show you one right over here. This is an example of the foam alphabets. They're nice and bold. They're like between $3 and $10 a set, so it's a great way to get a nice bold impact on your scrapbook pages. And smaller alphabet sets are good too. They have those little dollar alphabet sets, like this, at Walmart and the craft store by Studio G. Those are fun because you can stamp up little sentiments on cards as well. If you're scrapbooking, I think I did ask you, and you said you're more of a scrapbooker. I would say that buy stamps you love. Basic designs like flowers can go with so many different themes. Geometric designs can be used on boy pages. You can build backgrounds with them. I would stay away from anything too specific right off the bat, like you know, unless your kids are avid baseball players, I probably wouldn't go out and buy a baseball stamp set. I would stick to more generic basic designs and some alphabets until you build your collection. You can usually find some sets have like very useful sentiments, like with sympathy or happy birthday, best wishes, those sort of things. You might want to get one of those. That would be very versatile. One of the best things to do if you have a friend who stamps, if you could borrow a few sets and see what you end up using the most. But basic designs, remember, you don't need a big background stamp to stamp a background. You can mix and match a bunch of other little stamps to make backgrounds. I'd get a nice set of clear blocks, because clear stamps or unmounted stamps are going to be a lot more affordable, and they take up a lot less space. You can keep them stored right in binders. I have a binder right here to show you, like you can put them in divided page protectors in a binder like that, and then you can take them with you to crops, or if you go to a scrapbook at a friend's house or make cards at a friend's house. But one thing, trust your instincts, buy what you like. The other thing, buy basic designs you can use for many options. You can use for many different occasions. And 3, grab an alphabet set or 2, because I think you'll like that. And get a nice waterproof black ink pad, because that would be good for, you could use watercolor pencils with that. You know, the ink pads, that's going to be kind of an investment. Somehow I would recommend like getting the little Memento dewdrop pads, because the ink is really good and it's affordable to get started that way too. So it's quite a bit to think about probably, but buy what you like, but buy basic stuff that you can use for different occasions. Okay. Tracy writes, I live in the UK and I'm finding it hard to get alcohol to make my own inks or sprays. Even tried the local chemist, but no joy. It seems to be difficult to get a hold of. Any suggestions? Well, first of all, I don't use alcohol in my sprays. I use water, because you're breathing that stuff in. If it's sprayed in the air, you're breathing it in, so I wouldn't use the alcohol in your sprays. But for like alcohol inks for blending and stuff, I think in the UK it's called surgical spirits. It may be called mentholated spirits, but I heard that's not denatured alcohol. I think isopropyl alcohol or rubbing alcohol in the United States is surgical spirits in the UK, and I think that mentholated spirits, is that ethanol? I'm not 100% sure, but I think denatured alcohol is ethanol plus a poison, so people don't drink it. So if you could get a hold of ethanol and maybe water it down, or just use ethanol to make your alcohol inks if you want to. You may have to go to, let's see, if you don't have it in the drugstore, know, maybe like a science supply store or something. But try Surgical Spirit, see if that's available at your drugstore. If anybody from the UK wants to chime in and leave a comment for her in the comments section under this video, please do. And that way, Tracy, you can check and you can see if anybody from the UK knows the answer to that, okay? Sheila writes, you're too much, but don't stop. We could never thank you enough for these Ask a Crafter videos. My question, I make paper earrings, beads, and a scrapbook punch. Still trying to decide what coating is the best to use. I'm concerned about longevity. I've used Mod Podge, Judykins, Diamond Glaze, even polyurethane. Some are sticky, some are too heavy, some leave a dull finish. Please help and thank you. You want a water-based coating for your paper, otherwise it's going to sink into the paper and make it not so... it's not going to look as nice. So, but if you're hard pressed, you really want to use a oil-based coating, make sure you Mod Podge it first. What I would do is, okay, you're making earrings, they're not going to get a lot of wear and tear. If you roll them in like a Versamark pad and embossing ink, and then you dip them in embossing powder, clear embossing powder, and heat them, they're going to have a nice shell, a nice clear shell on there, and they're going to look great. Diamond Glaze will work great. The Judykins Diamond Glaze is great stuff. I've even used nail polish. Even though that's not water-based, it dries so quickly that it doesn't seem to have time to sink into the paper. So nail polish, or try the Judykins. I think the Judykins will work good, or just clear emboss them. EJP Creations writes, thanks so much for your helpful advice. I have a lifelong quest to find the perfect spray paper hardener. I make intricate 3D dioramas with scrapbook paper and would like to both seal them and harden the paper without leaving brush strokes or pools of product in the crevices. So I think a spray would be best, but I need something that won't change the color of the paper I've used and is matte. Resin is icky and the rest of the products I've used are disappointing. Yeah, resin wouldn't really be good for that. Resin's better if you're pouring it in something. I would use an acrylic-based spray paint, an acrylic clear spray paint. You may be able to find that at the hardware store or the department store, but you most definitely will find that someplace where they sell toll painting supplies, because a lot of people like to spray the clear matte over their like painted on wood pieces, they're toll painted pieces. So find a clear acrylic matte spray paint. So look for wherever they sell toll painting supplies or like acrylic bottles and tubes. They should have that sort of sealer with that. Anthony writes, hey Lindsay, another entertaining and useful video. My question is it possible to stamp on fabric with Stampin' Up! Ink? Is there a product you can get that will fix the ink to make it permanent? Stampin' Up! Used to sell what was called craft ink. It was a pigment ink, and you could stamp on fabric with that and then heat set it with an iron. I think they discontinued that though. You may be able to get away with stamping, depending on what you're stamping it with a basic black, which is waterproof, and then coloring it with alcohol markers if you wanted to. But what I would do is just use a foam brush and dab some acrylic paint onto your stamp and stamp onto your fabric. That's going to work the best. They do make fabric medium, and you mix that right with your acrylic paint, and that thins it down but also makes it more flexible. So you know when you get like a t-shirt and it's been all cracked, it had a printed design, it's all cracked and worn, that makes your paint more flexible, so it's going to stretch and move with your fabric. So I would use acrylic paint plus fabric medium, dab it on with a makeup sponge or a soft foam brush, and use that. Just make sure you clean your stamps really good when you're done, because acrylic paint will ruin them if it dries on there. Redhead Cobweb writes, what do you think of glass paints as a substitute for alcohol inks? I guess they wouldn't blend in the same way, but they're really vibrant and transparent, and they cover glass. I'm assuming they would cover metal eggshells as well. Yeah, I like glass paints. I like the PBO brand, and I like Lefranc and Bourgeois brand, and I also like the Folk Art enamels. So basically with either of those brands, I think with almost all of the glass paints, you can paint on glass or metal. You can let it cure for 24 hours and bake it at 350 for half an hour, or you can let it cure for 3 weeks. You could let it dry for 3 weeks. I would bake it anyway just to be safe. So you can get that in opaque or transparent. The Folk Art enamels are only opaque, but the PBO and the Lefranc and Bourgeois come in either transparent or opaque. And yeah, just paint it on, let it dry for a day, and then bake it in the oven. And the transparent ones will show your metal through the paint, which would be pretty, and the opaque ones won't. It'll be more like an enameled look. And you could also try nail polish if you want like quick drying, ready to go. Grab some nail polish at the dollar store and go to town. All right, Beth asks, I love to paint stuff and never know what kind of brushes work best for different surfaces. Is there a guideline or just hit and miss like I do now? Okay, so your brush determines the look that your paint's gonna have either on the paper or the canvas or the wood, and it also depends on what medium you're using. So for watercolor, you want a absorbent brush that is soft, because you don't want to use a brush that's going to scratch up your paper and leave pills and leave dark spots where you don't want it. So soft nylon brushes are good for watercolor. Sable and other soft natural hair brushes, not the hog bristle, but like sable, or they may call it ponytail brush, pony hair. I like to use synthetic nylon brushes for watercolor. I also like to use synthetic nylon brushes for acrylic, because you can get a really nice smooth coverage with those. There's a little, you can always grab an acrylic brush and use it for watercolor, but you don't want to use your watercolor brushes with your acrylic paint, because acrylic's really hard on your brushes. You can also use hog bristle brushes on acrylics if you want to see those brush strokes, or if you're painting on a canvas and you really, because it's harder to move paint across a canvas as it is like a smooth piece of wood, so you'd want to use your hog bristle brushes. And for oils, I usually use hog bristle brushes. I have used some acrylic, some synthetic brushes before, but they get the oil paint kills them. So with oil, you want to use your hog bristle brushes, but then when you get to the end and you're refining and you're adding subtle details, then you can use the softer natural bristle brushes for your oils. And as long as you wash them out good, they'll last you a long, long time. Acrylic paint's probably the worst on brushes. Now, as for brush shapes, there's long, skinny brushes called liners that will hold a lot of paint and let you paint long lines with them without running out. There's filberts, which are like a flat brush with a rounded edge for doing like portraits, very soft edged applications of flat paint. There's rounds for having more detail work, or for watercolor, I love rounds because they hold a lot of paint and you can press firmly to give a wide bit of color, and you can just work on the tips to give a small line of color. So experiment, but basically just keep the synthetics, keep acrylics, use synthetics for acrylics. Watercolors, you can use soft synthetics or soft natural hair brushes, and oils, you want like the hard hog hair brushes and the natural brushless. So I got a phone call. Hang on one second. I am a popular woman today. My phone has not rung this much as it has today. Oh my gosh. So I was talking about brushes, right? Yes, I was just talking about brushes. But you know what? Rules are meant to be broken. Sometimes I will take a brush, a rough oil painting hog brush, because I want to have scratchy weeds in a watercolor painting, and I'll just kind of pick up a little bit of paint on the tips of that brush, and I'll just, flick up some scratchy weeds. So, learn what the brushes are used for, get used to using them, and then break those rules, because you'll know the effect you want to get on your painting, and it's up to you, the artist, what you use. So there are some guidelines, but I don't like to say rules. Rules aren't fun. You do what you want to do, you'll get the effect you want, but those are the guidelines. You don't want to start off with some rough brushes on your watercolor paper and get it all scratched up before you even get a chance to paint on it. So yeah. That's it, right? If you have any more questions, please leave a comment. If I totally missed the mark and didn't answer what you're asking, just let me know. Carol Smith writes, oh, and you said brushes for different surfaces. Wood, you probably want the synthetic brushes if you're painting acrylics on wood, because if you don't want brush strokes, because wood is smooth and you can glide across with a synthetic brush. Synthetic brushes are harder to use on canvas because it's bumpy. All right, Carol Smith writes, being new to the whole electronic medium for communication, how could you help me with a few questions? Question 1, you refer often about going to your blog. How do you find your blog, and basically how is it used? Well, if you're on YouTube, well, first you could always search The Frugal Crafter, and my blog will be like the first thing in the search results. Or if you're on my YouTube channel, there's a little WordPress icon in my header that looks like a bunch of ribbons and beads. Click on that, that goes to my blog. Excuse me. And also in the show more section under the video, there's a link to my blog. I always put that. I try to remember to always put that in there. And I just post different projects on there, usually still photos and my videos. It's just a great place just to throw pictures up of my work. Mine's all crafting. I don't have any of my, personal life stuff up there. It's just all crafting and crafty recipes and fun stuff like that. Question 2 is, you always say thumbs up. I don't see a symbol on my screen. Could it be I'm subscribed to you on YouTube? You might be subscribed to me. But the thumbs up is basically just a little rating. You can, like, if you liked it, you can click the thumbs up button. If you don't like it, you can click the thumbs down button. Or if you think, sometimes if you watch like a tutorial on something and you're like, oh, that's not right, that's, you know, you could thumb down, you know. So it's basically just a you're rating, either I liked it or I don't like it, you know, basically. So I love the thumbs up. That's really nice. It just, it helps feedback too. When I look through my, you know, statistics, I could see with, oh, people didn't like that video very much, did they? Wow, people like that video. You know, I can look through and see, you know, how it was rated. But I use WordPress for my blogging platform. Somebody else just asked me about blogs too, so I'll just talk a little bit about it. Blogger is another popular one. I think Blogger might be a little easier to use, but I think WordPress offers a lot more features, and I think the look is a little more professional on WordPress. But basically, I like to just pop on the blog every morning. Here's like the latest thing I made. Also, I design for a few companies, so if I've used their products, I like to put it up there to kind of promote the companies that I design for. And but basically it's just about, you know, sharing the love of craft. But that's not, but you can have a personal blog, you could share recipes, you could do whatever you want on a blog. It's just a personal platform where you can say what you want to say. It's basically like your own little magazine or newspaper where you can write what you want. In a lot of cases they're free. WordPress is free, Blogger's free. I think there's others. Those are the only two I've ever used. So, you know, do a little research and, you know, try it. It's fun, and you can keep it private. If you don't want the whole world, if you want to just try it out and you don't want the whole world to know, you can keep it private. So, there you go. Marla and Kim's Card Shop were asking about where to find Copic paper. I like the Nina Solar White Super Smooth cardstock for Copic coloring, 80 pound. You can buy it at almost any store that sells stamps and stamping supplies. I know Simon Says Stamp has it online. 7 Kids College Fund has it. You can buy it directly from Nina if you want a whole ream of the stuff. So any of those places are great. Or you could just Google Nina cardstock and see what you could find for a good price. But those 3 places are great. Sometimes your local print shop will even carry it. You could call around and you might be able to just pop in and grab a few sheets for, you know, 20 cents a piece or whatever. I'd say 15 cents a piece is a really good price. That's probably about the best price I've seen. Pam writes, love your videos, very helpful. Unfortunately, I hadn't seen your video beforehand about the gel sticks, so I have a question about those darn gelatos. They don't seem to be smooth when applying to any surfaces, nor do they blend well. I have tried smoother papers and adding water. They don't smooth around easily or blend. Overall, it just seems wrong. Any ideas? Maybe I'm doing it wrong. I'm confused. Thanks so much in advance. Well, they shouldn't feel dry. If you're using them, they should feel smooth to color on. They shouldn't feel dry and chalky. If they feel dry and chalky, I would contact Faber-Castell and ask them for a replacement, because that's not how they should feel. Maybe they were old stock and they got dried out or something. Unless you left them with a cap off and you live in a really dry area. I don't know why it would behave like that. But and these are, I actually just got these at the stamp show because I had $2 off coupon at Marco's Paper. So I got some gelatos to go with my folatos, my gel sticks that I use a lot. But a baby wipe. Pick up a baby wipe and go over it with that, and that will blend your gelatos perfectly as long as there's nothing wrong with them. So try that. Tiffany Holly writes, hey Lindsay, love the videos. I do mostly jewelry for my crafts, but I focus more on wire work than stringing, simply because I can't seem to get anything to look right when I'm stringing and it drives me crazy. Do you have any tips? Yeah, I have a tip right here. This is a bead design board. This was like, I don't know, $6 at the craft store. It's made by Doris. It's a plastic board. It's nothing fancy. It's got gray flocking on it, which is a neutral color, so whatever you're putting on it for beads, it's not going to be detracted, and the background is not going to alter it. It's going to look the way it's going to look. And so you have these different channels. So like if you're doing a multi-strand necklace or bracelet, you can, you know, line them up in the channels and kind of design like that. You've got little places to throw your beads that you're working with. Lay it out first on a design board. When you like to look at it, then string it. Once you like the way it looks, just push your beading wire through, and you're good to go. That will save you a lot of time and frustration. Not bad for a $6 investment. And I would get, that's the big one. They do make a smaller one if you don't have room for that, but I have a couple tacks on the wall and I just set it up on the wall. Joyce writes, hello again, love your videos and learn a lot from them. I have another question. I just purchased some twinkling H2Os. Is it better to let them completely dry out before closing them up? Yes, let them dry out. I just leave the cap off overnight, and if they're dry in the morning, put the cap back on. If you have to leave them out for a while to dry, I would maybe put like maybe put them under a shelf or someplace where they're not going to get dust in them. But I do that for my watercolors too. It's not the H2Os themselves that will mold. It's if you have bacteria in your water or something, you know, your water isn't pure. Maybe you dipped your brush in your teacup while you're painting. Trust me, it happens. And so you got some schmutz in there that wants to get nasty. You let it dry out, nothing's going to grow in there. So yes, let them dry out. Same thing with your watercolor paints. Okay, I think we're gonna have a 3-parter video here. I think I'm at another 20 minutes and my video camera's gonna crap out on me. So so stay tuned for part 3 in just a second. All right, part 3 of Ask a Crafter 7. We got just a couple more questions to get through. I'm giving them to you in bite-sized chunks. Hopefully that will be easy to get to. KS Cookie wonders, I would like to know if you can use the silicone Martha Stewart molds with Fimo and Sculpey clays. Thanks. Yes, you can. You can use a Martha Stewart silicone mold with pretty much anything you want to mold. I've used them with plaster of Paris. I've used them with Sculpey clay. I've used them with the Martha Stewart clay. I've used them with cold porcelain. And I intend to use them with resin. So if you're going to use them with resin though, you want to, or any silicone mold or any mold in general, I would use Cast and Craft clay, mold release and conditioner, and I think it would release from the mold anyway, but this will just keep your molds lasting longer. So I'm told. I've done no resin. I'm waiting for it to get warm enough in my studio to use my resin, so I ordered a bottle of this for a couple bucks, so that just to be on the safe side. Queen Finn writes, hey there Lindsay, thanks so much for all you do. My question is, have you heard or tried water marbling? I found the technique on YouTube and I can't seem to stop myself. Nothing made of paper in my house is safe now. If you have any knowledge of this craft, my problem is getting the right consistency of my acrylic paints so they stay put for my patterns. Any tips? I have done water marbling for my fingernails, where you have like a dish of room temperature water, and then you drip your nail polish in there, and then you stick your fingernails in, and then you use a toothpick to pull out the extra stuff, to collect all the extra nail polish, and you pull them out and you get marbleized nails. But I haven't done it with acrylic paints, so I really can't help you. I think, you know, it's one of those things too that you just need to play with and practice and experiment, and then you'll finally find a sweet spot of where your acrylic paint needs to be. Sorry on that one. You stumped me. What can I say? You stumped me. I don't often get stumped. Jackie wonders how long the permanent jelly plate lasts. Well, I made 2. I made a regular one and a permanent one, and the permanent one is still looking great. The one that I didn't use glycerin and alcohol in had already molded and I chucked it. So it should really last for years, but we will see. So far so good though. We have no mold. Everything's looking good right now. Jane Castle writes, great video Lindsay, all 40 minutes and 53 seconds of it. I always enjoy your answers. I buy the Neenah Classic Solar Crest white cover cardstock and use it for card making, and yes, it's perfect for Copics. I would like to know a good brand and weight of cardstock to use for the base of my cards and save the Neenah for the layers. That's what I do too, Jan. And she's been using Neenah for both, and it gets expensive. What I use for my base layers is sometimes I'll buy like the card bases and the envelopes in those packages at the craft store. I think it's the Nicole brand, and you get 50 card bases and envelopes on sale for like $5, but that does tend to be flimsy paper on the card bases. So I get the Georgia Pacific white. You get a 250 sheet pack at Sam's Club for about $7. I also use a Staples ivory. It's either ivory or cream. One is cover and one is cardstock. You want the cardstock weight, and that's 110 pound, and I think it's $15 a 250 sheet ream. So that's what I use for my card bases typically. Or like Stampin' Up! Cardstock makes a great card base. It's not cheap, but it is it's a nice card. I like the Stampin' Up! Craft cardstock for card bases. That's really rugged stuff. So that's what I do. The Staples stuff is actually really durable. It's pretty cheap, so that's a good recommendation. They do make the white. They make several pastel shades in that, so that works. Any other ones? Let's see. One more question from Marie. Thanks for another fun way to start my day. So I waited to think of a question, and when I watched your video on watercolor wash, I found my question. Can I use watercolor pencils? I have the ink tense ones you recommended instead of watercolor paints to get the same effect. Also, I have gel sticks. Are they an option? Alright, so you want to, okay, so last week I did a video on watercolor washes. So you want to use those instead of watercolor paints. I think, well, you can. I don't think it's the best route. I think you're going to use up your medium quite a bit, but if you're going to use gelatos, which I think might be a little bit easier, they're going to end up being a little more opaque than watercolor, but you can scribble off a bunch of the gelatos, or you can even take a razor blade and scrape some off into like a little cup, just like maybe a lid from like a bottle or something, and add some water to it until you get like the consistency of like skim milk. And then you would wet your paper down, and then you would drip that color into it. So you could do your watercolor washes that way. For watercolor pencils, the Inktense, they're very bright, so yeah, I mean, you would want to scribble it. You have to scribble it on something somewhat rough to get enough color to be able to make a wash with it, which is going to be a little difficult. But maybe if you had like maybe if you cut a little piece out of a plastic milk jug, so you had that frosted rough surface, and you scribbled out a bunch on there, then you could add some water and get enough ink to do a wash that way. Yeah, you can, but you know what? If I were you, I'd go to Walmart or Staples and get a little set of the Prang 8, watercolors, not the washable, the other kind, but Prang. For some reason, their little kids watercolor strip is fabulous. Just get that and mix up your colors from there and do your watercolor washes that way. If you're not going to be doing, paintings with it, I think that's going to be just fine. Well, that wraps up my questions for Ask a Crafter. I haven't decided if I'm going to splice it all together in one long video or if I'm going to put them up in 3 short videos. We will see. We will see. With this new camera, I've got new editing software to go with it, so we'll see how I make up with that. If not, there's going to be 3 short videos. Not really short ones either, actually 20-minute ones. But anyway, I want to thank you so much for watching and submitting your questions. If you have a question, then leave it in the comments section of this video or on my blog, and I will answer it next week. Thank you so much for watching. Thumbs up and subscribe if you like my stuff. And until next time, happy crafting.